Animefest 2017 in Dallas. Welcome to the Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. We are live for the second time at Animefest in Dallas. We were here last year. We see a lot of the same people again, and it is so delightful. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, we are going to be discussing Wicked City, the 1987 film. First of all, how many people have seen Wicked City? Okay, roughly, roughly half of you.
I can't wait till the question Q&A part of this.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the people who have not actually seen it and are in for just a half an hour or an hour or so of what?
2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah, beware. Hour and 22 minutes.
In God's name.
We seriously considered showing it on the screen while
No,
we
you did.
talked about it.
As usual, Jason's the idea man.
Yeah. But
better or worse.
And everybody to a man and a woman just actually absolutely forbade me from showing it on the screen.
There's a reason.
Whereas I could have gotten up and just like waved and gotten in front of the screen during the objection.
We could do shadow puppets of it.
Yeah, I thought we were going to do an actual skit, like a improvisational skit, a reenactment. Oh no! Whoa, that's actually never mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bad idea for me.
Bad idea.
I should introduce people.
I'm the
in
only
fact,
woman. And I'm not unconscious.
Speaking at the far end, definitely not unconscious, is Miss Jamie Barr. She is the lead singer and upright bassist for Danger Cakes, an all-girl rockabilly band. Absolutely fantastic. She is here with her album Quarter Life Crisis, and you definitely should check them out. She's also the president of Girls Rock, an organization in Austin dedicated to explain what you really do.
It is a fantastic thing.
Wow. It's so fantastic how fantastic everyone thinks Girls Rock Austin and it is. But it is quite fantastic. Our mission is empowering girls, transgender, non-binary, gender fluid youth, and just all women in general. We want to help you and help others. But it's basically a music and social justice organization where in a week's time kids come in and learn how to play an instrument, write a song together, go through a series of workshops from everything from music, video, and audio recording productions, workshops to self-defense and yoga and body positivity and body image in the media. And at the end of the week they come together and they perform their song at a venue at a local venue at a club downtown in Austin.
That's super
cool. Yeah, we are just started our after-school program, which will be set up to start in October. So we're very excited about that.
Cool. Thank you very, very much. Also with us is Tony Salvaggio. He is the tech director at Rooster Teeth Studios, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. And if you actually listen to this show every week, and we record every week discussing a different horror movie, our opening music is actually by Tony Salvaggio. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
I think you might have, I don't know if you recommended this movie originally.
No, I think...
Whose idea was it?
I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay. All right.
We'll get into that.
We all signed off on it.
Yeah.
Well, the three of us.
We're going to have a discussion later.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
Recommending
because I
tonight's
did not,
movie
is
Mr. Drew Edwards. I know you didn't recommend tonight's movie as a recommendation per se.
We'll get into that.
But you recommended it for discussion. And I'm absolutely not against that. I was very excited to discuss this.
We're going to discuss the hell out of this movie.
Drew Edwards, to my left, is the editor-in-chief of horrormovies.net and a writer and contributor to Rockabilly Online, and the writer and creator of the long-running comic Halloween Man, which is an adventure series about a revived zombie superhero and his mad scientist girlfriend in a futuristic city built on the ruins of old Dallas. And that's Halloween Man. So hello, welcome.
Howdy, y'all.
And my name is Jason Henderson. I'm your host every single week. Right now we're in the middle of our 2017 summer retrospective. We just finished a series on Creature from the Black Lagoon. I'm a young adult novelist. My most recent series is the Alex Van Helsing series, which is in every middle grade library in the country. And my next series is Young Captain Nemo, which comes late next year from Macmillan Children's. I'm super excited about that. Nobody who reads those books should be watching the film that we are discussing tonight.
Oh man! And Jason and I both wrote books together.
Yes,
a
indeed.
book Clockworks, which I have here, and another book for Tokyo Pop called Psycom. So
Yeah.
we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, we
and
actually-
we watched a bunch of anime together. And
But
I don't
not
think
this
this one.
one.
This one, yeah.
And you're also the original lineup of Wild Stallions.
As it happens, I wrote a review. Tony and I both did manga and anime columns years ago, and 4 years. And I wrote a review of Wicked City 17 years ago. I found the other day, it was 1,000 words long. I can't believe I found 1,000 words to say, beware. But also, I truly, as a writer, I was really inspired by a lot of the creative visions in this film when I wasn't being sorely worried about the people that might watch it on my recommendation. So let's talk about what this movie is. Wicked City, known in Japan as Supernatural Beast City, is a 1987 Japanese OVA neo-noir horror film produced by Madhouse for Japan Home Video, based on the novel Blackguard, the first in a series of 6 novels by Hideyuki Kikuchi. The film is the directorial debut of Yoshiki Kawajiri, and he also served as character designer, storyboard artist, animation director, and key animator. The story takes place towards the end of the 20th century, explores the idea that the human world secretly coexists with a demon world, with a secret police force known as the Blackguard protecting the boundary. So in the same way that Vienna at the end of World War II divides East and West, here you've got Tokyo that is like right at the edge of a transom between the human world and the demon world, and there's a police force that guards that. And the plot, very, very briefly, is that their treaty that has held between the demon world and the human world is coming to a close, and 2 police officers basically are Mulder and Scully, known as Taki and Maki. Taki, the super hunky, super masculine Japanese dude, and Maki, a super hot, super
Fashion model.
Yeah.
She is a fashion model.
I wanted to say super feminine, but she actually has kind of a wonderfly butch look. She
Yeah,
wears
like very 80s. I mean, she's 80s new wave. But,
yeah, she wears a black suit, dangly earrings. She has Sheena Easton hair and a gun. And she's of the demon world, and they have to work together for the next 48 hours to protect the guy who's
From
supposed
scum of the universe.
The guy who's supposed to fly in and sign the treaty. And as I said the guy that they're protecting, whose name is Meyer, is essentially Yoda if Yoda were a dirty old man.
You mean Giuseppe? Is that Giuseppe?
God, it's Giuseppe.
And basically the plot, I won't get into the details of the plot, but basically it's they need to babysit him, they lose track of him because he wants to go to a whorehouse, they finally find him at the whorehouse, but the demon partner gets kidnapped by her old lover of the demon world and
He's a demon terrorist.
and his band of radicals who then do a lot of like sexual violation stuff here, and eventually secrets are revealed about what's actually going on with the treaty. But that whole notion of protect this guy, get the treaty signed, that is a classic post-war neo-noir kind of plot. And the idea of 2 partners who are from different worlds is a very sort of familiar thing. So we're in kind of familiar territory, but different visions. Okay, so that's the plot. Let me go straight to the weirdest thing here. And Jamie, I really, in the interest of intersectionality, first impressions, Wicked City, Jamie, Is this your first time at Wicked City?
You know,
And what are your thoughts?
I thought it was my first time.
Yes.
I felt like it was my first time, and it was my first time in a lot of ways. But no, I actually realized after the fact that I had seen this movie while I was in college, except it was the very censored, edited version of it, and didn't have anything related.
Was that movie only 10 minutes long?
It was a short.
It wasn't
It
very
showed
long.
between other, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it still had a lot of violence, but it did not have the graphic, sexual,
Right.
exploitive content that it does. So I was kind of surprised since no one said anything about that to me. We reviewed Vampire Hunter D last year for Animefest, so I was expecting something a little on those lines, you know, but I was clearly very wrong. But my first impression, yikes, holy shit, and
All of these are acceptable.
yeah, this is quite a rapey movie, and man, all I can say is like I don't know. I don't even know if I can be
Is it okay to like this?
detailed.
Here's my question.
You know, that's the funny thing. I wouldn't say I dislike the movie in spite of all of these horrible things that it has in it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can see why this movie was so influential on so many other films that are still being made. So I can take that from it. But it's kind of like when you know about your child, like a childhood hero, and then suddenly seeing that they're, you know, this horrible, disgusting person. It
Did you
was
just
kind of
compare
like
this
that.
movie to Bill Cosby?
A little.
Oh, that works in other ways I don't want
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe, yeah. Oh.
But yeah, no,
It's way more meta than I want to think about.
Yeah, and it is. But again, I just couldn't take how every female character in this movie is either a demon or unconscious.
Yeah.
There's only 5
And-
characters that
And
are
Maki's both a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
And poor Maki, my gosh, how many times can you get raped in one day? I mean, that's basically it. It's
I think
just
that's on the
like,
back of the box,
oops, I
right?
just got raped again last night.com. Like, that's what
Yeah.
it seems like. And it's terrible because every time they just make light of it afterwards. It's just like, oh, biggie,
Right, she
I
blows
just
it
rescued
off.
you
I
from a
mean,
Takes
gangbang.
it like
Oh,
stride.
hey, I could use a snack. That's what this movie is
I'm
like.
just
It's
gonna go
so like, what? What?
Yeah.
Crazy. And it's just balls to the wall. It's crazy. And I feel like they're just like, okay.
This is also one of the reasons why I like this podcast is it's not, you know, we're guys, and having an extra perspective like that is always, that's one of the things I really love about this is like, I've often, because in general in college, especially, you know, anime wasn't really, like most of my female friends definitely weren't going to watch it, but also probably this I would never show this, like I'm not going to be like to my wife, go, hey, let's go watch Wicked City, which actually that leads to mine. So my apologies too.
Light
I
some candles.
had not seen. Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
It's terrible.
Like I hadn't seen this movie since like college, where you know there was a lot of stuff where you checked it out because anime at the time we talked about on our previous panel was that, you know, wow, I can't believe this is a cartoon. Like I can't believe this is animated. Somebody drew all of the frames in this. That was their job, was to draw all of the frames. Every frame you see, somebody had to draw it and then draw it again and then draw another frame for thousands and thousands of frames. So I hadn't seen that, and so we watched it. I had forgotten how hentai this movie was. Like I had completely, like I was like, oh yeah, the Spider-Woman, that's cool. And I think I also colluded it with Demon City Shinjuku, which has a lot of stuff, but is I think a little bit tamer. It's more action violence and less weird sexual whatever goes on in Wicked City. And so I really I was watching, oh man, Wicked City, I haven't seen that in a while. This would be cool for the podcast. Wicked City, I'm back, 87. It looks like, what I love about, the one thing I love is Japan in the 80s was full 80s.
Yeah.
There were more shoulder pads, the shoulder pad industry, we thought it was if you believe entertainment of the time, and it happened in China,
hell,
Hong
Japan
Kong,
in the 90s was full 80s. For
they hung on to it. Everything in entertainment looked like a Nagel painting. There were if you believe entertainment of the time, everybody was in Prince's band, basically.
Yeah.
Every woman was in Prince's band. And everything's super neon. There's a Tumblr I need to share. Although it was more 80s, and now it's there's a lot more kind of male gaze kind of stuff in this one Tumblr. But there's a Tumblr that's just everything Japan and 80s, digital, and the fetishism of a cassette and a memory disc and all this stuff. When I went back to it recently, I discovered there was a lot more kind of it was a little bit more sexual, but not over the top, but there was more of it. I just love the 80s fetishism of this one thing, and I'll have to post it on the Castle of Horror thing. Yeah. But they really enjoyed it. So everything's pink and blue and some weird offshoot from Blade Runner, but also from a painting and that also is neon. I love all of that stuff that's in Wicked City, and the colors and how everybody looks in all the suits and everything. But yeah, I had totally forgotten, and as I was watching it, I was like, oh damn it, Jamie's watching this too. There's another tentacle scene. Oh, that guy straight up says, hey, isn't it cool? Don't you like rape? And all this stuff happens, and I'm watching it, and I had totally forgotten Wicked City, because when I was watching this at the time, I was like, whoa, I can't believe this, and it kind of glossed over it, and then you forget, and then you are older, and you realize yeah, Drew's a good friend of mine, and now I'm watching, his wife's watching super tentacle rape show with the Spider Woman, because all the stuff I remember, he has a gun that is so powerful it knocks him through walls.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All that 80s stuff is awesome, and yeah, the rest of it was really I was more uncomfortable that I had to subject somebody else. I watched this before, okay, it makes me uncomfortable now, because I don't, because I used to review anime as well.
Yeah.
But I reviewed anime, I got a lot of it from this one company that also did tons of hentai. And so eventually, and some of it disturbs me. There was a couple in particular. I would, a lot of times, fast forward through things to see if there was anything good. There's cool stuff in this, but you have to get through the not so cool stuff. And there were a couple where I was legit sketched out. If somebody told me, if somebody came up to me, and there was one called Professor Payne, somebody was like, dude, Professor Payne? Professor Payne's great. You've seen that, right? I would be like, we're shutting this down. I don't know who Professor Payne's made for, but it's nobody I want to know. So, and to the point where my wife eventually was like, it's okay, you review anime, that's great. Can you have them quit sending you porn? And especially this porn? And so all of that kind of came a little back, where I was like, oh man, I had forgotten. So while there are a lot of interesting things in Wicked City, I can't recommend it to very many people, and I'm sorry if you are yeah, what else is, especially people who we're gonna post this and people have seen our schedule on the website, and they're like, oh, well, Castle of Horror's doing that, we should go watch us in Wicked City.
Come on, kids! No.
When this airs, I want to go on record as I'm kind of sorry, and I go, if you want recommendations that aren't rapey, tentacle things, I can give you hundreds of not that. And please watch those and pretend we didn't tell you to watch this with us. So I'm now over to Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Drew, first impressions, Wicked City.
First off, I'm going to say, yeah, I did it. I made them watch this movie. I'm going to own it. Somebody has to.
Usually it's Jason, so.
This was my idea. but I will give you some background on that and how we got here. So I have not seen this movie since I was a teenager. When I was a kid in Possum Kingdom, Texas, we had one video store. And
Had to walk uphill both ways to get to it.
sure. So if you wanted to see anime, at that time we called it Japanimation. It was the early...
They were simpler, more stupid, and
Simpler,
way
more
less PC
racially
times.
insensitive times.
I'm so glad we changed that to
Yeah.
actually what Japan refers to it.
Look, it's...
But it was
It
because
is what it
animation was like, I mean, animation's sort of kind of always been in the ghetto. As
ghetto.
far as like, you know, it's for kids or it's not worth my. Maybe Disney's okay, but even Disney's just for kids. So when it came to having something from Japan, they wanted to really sell that is cool Japan. And unfortunately, at the time, Japanimation was the term they came because it sounded cool to some marketing person who was very tone deaf.
Every time I hear it, I think of, it's time for Japanimaniacs.
That would have probably been better.
That would have been a good alternate title for Wicked City. So he had a big booklet of anime VHS tapes that he could get sent from a friend of his in Fort Worth.
Right.
And he would let you rent that for a week. And so you'd go through it and you would rent it and you would rent whatever sounds interesting. And that's how I saw Fist of a North Star, Tank Police, like a lot of things.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
That didn't involve rape.
Yeah.
To my memory. So I haven't seen this movie since I was a teenager. I remember seeing it and remember thinking, oh man, this is cool. It's like kind of like The Thing. There's all this weird like shape-shifty body horror going on. Like, they've got these cool guns. They're wearing Blues Brothers suits. This is so cool. And I'm watching as a teenager watches things without the maturity of a grown man.
Why would this be problematic?
Why would this be problematic?
I mean, that happens in Demon Land.
Yeah, this is just extreme horror. So, a few days ago, we put this up on YouTube. I'm watching it.
Yeah, and did you
I'm
watch
watching
it?
it.
I sent
Yes,
you the
you
link.
did. I'm watching it with my wife.
Yeah.
Before
And I'm
bed.
like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, not like
this
that.
movie is
No.
wow, this movie is warped. Like, am I a warped person for watching this? This movie is warped. And suddenly, like, the adult guilt sinks in. When you have a more mature mindset, and you're like, I am actually watching. I'm enjoying this movie. What does this say about me? Because I will say this movie has merit. I will say what no one else on this panel has said so far.
I did say that.
Oh, you did. You did.
did.
I apologize. But this movie does have a lot of cool things in it, and you can see the influence it has on other things, like on Men in Black, The Matrix. But it's really rapey, y'all. This movie makes me uncomfortable, and it takes a lot for a movie to make me uncomfortable because I have a very strong stomach when it comes to this kind of thing. So, like Tony,
Gore and not rape.
gore, not rape, gore.
Always.
Yeah, but I could not readily recommend this movie for everybody, but it is an interesting movie to watch because there is stuff in it that you're not going to see anywhere else.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Henderson.
I wrote 1,000 words.
I did
don't
write
you don't have to go through the 1,000 words.
No.
Give us the
Just
Be a brief
some of them.
version.
Yeah.
By the way, I did force these guys to watch in the last year. I forced them to watch Embrace of the Vampire, which was
I missed that one.
a cheesy romantic vampire movie from the 90s that we were watching it because I really wanted to discuss it because
Because you have a crush on Alyssa Milano.
Right, Alyssa Milano, and she was, and it was one where
America's-
the vampire is seducing women and whatever.
Say it. Who's the boss?
And and Tony afterwards was like, "This is the most miserable thing I've ever had."
No,
So-
I had seen
wait a
this.
minute.
And this has, we probably should say it, but, okay, so in the same way that Drew, Actually, Drew had enjoyed this. Jason has been wanting to watch Embrace the Vampire for a long time. I had seen it. It's not a good movie at all. And I've come to find out, because she's like, oh man, his love of the 80s. We both love the 80s. Yeah. Jason maybe even more than me, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Because look at this
Jason,
jacket.
straight up, used to shop at Chess King, etc.
Sure, yeah.
So, come to find out, I'm like, oh man, he must really love this movie. I'm not going to tell him no, because he loves this movie. That would be rude. He's a friend of mine. Jason had never seen that stupid movie and just wanted to watch it and forced us to watch it.
I just thought it would be enjoyable to discuss. I'd heard that it was good, or interesting, at least. Anyway, so this happens all the time. With Wicked City, one thing I should note, if you go watching it and you're hoping to see a lot of graphic stuff, to be honest, the movie's pretty pixelated. All genitalia is below the screen and everything. What is disturbing is all of this sexual violence that is against the will of the characters. But actually, the movie is actually pretty demure about what it's going to show.
In Wicked City?
Yeah, no one.
Did you see that? You did not watch. You
Demure?
You didn't see the same.
Was it Demure when Giuseppe is at the whorehouse and he puts his hands literally through the prostitute's breasts as they melt down around her, and he becomes part of her, like a fly on a glue trap.
Let's not forget. So we're gonna skip ahead. So I'm gonna have to refute this, and I usually we would cover it kind of sequentially.
Yeah.
I do want to know. I have a couple questions.
Yeah,
so
go crazy.
What is demure in your? I'm interested in this definition. The giant vagina in the middle of the
Hypno-vagina.
that hypnotizes people?
Yes.
Also, at first we see the Spider-Woman, and that's really cool. She's in lingerie, and then she turns into Spider-Woman, and that's scary. And, I'm all for all that up until the spidery part.
Yeah. There is no...
She shoots webs out of her toothy vagina.
Yeah.
It's very...
And I'm sorry if we say vagina a lot. I hope
she does whatever a spider can, folks.
We're gonna...
Technically, it's a vulva.
Yes. I wonder. So, teeth, webs. What's demure about that? I'm really your definition is so much different than mine.
What I'm saying is, once
She was quite graceful, though.
you
True.
I mean, she's
So
good
let's give her that.
She's good at what she does.
That's true.
There's no mistake. The Spider-Woman is good at everything she does.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's turning upside down.
I do want to get to the Spider-Woman. What's interesting is, once anything transforms, it takes the screen. But there's no what we used to call FFN of a human.
Well, that's because
You've got tentacle oral sex.
No.
With, no actual right. No
but that's
genitalia.
because this is how, and this is part of the kind of hentai genre in general. And just to fill everybody else in case you. Oh, jeez. So, in Japan, while you can have all kinds of things like this and Overfiend and many other Professor Payne, I'm going to go back to that. And please don't ever, I say that, don't look it up. I know that will make you look it up.
I'm going to look it up.
Oh, I'm so, I call it I have what I call the soap bubble. I have what I call the soap bubble effect, where you see something, especially now that there's the internet, where it's easy for somebody to send you something, and then in your brain, there's this little piece of innocence, and it goes, boop, and you'll never ever get that back. It is gone. It's like a soap bubble that you don't ever get it back, and I'm really sad. There's been some times where I've avoided, you got to see this. I'm like, nah, I'm cool.
I know that.
And then somebody puts a GIF. There was one really terrible graphic thing that was going around the internet, and I had avoided it.
Yeah.
But then somebody made that their SIG GIF, they hacked, somebody
Really?
hacked. So scrolling through a forum, and then it's a GIF, and I'm like, oh, that's...
I have
That's
been
awful.
a similar experience with that, where I I was at a work party and everybody's standing around and I was like, hey, what's everybody doing? They're like, I bet you can't watch this video without making a single facial reaction. You have to watch the entire video. It's only 2 minutes long.
I would not take that back.
And if you can do it, you get $50. And I was kind of hard up, so I was like, game on.
No, it's never worth that.
And
But
I
you never
did
get
it,
that
and
back.
I won. I got the $50. And
How much did you cry afterwards?
I didn't.
Or how much of that $50 went to booze to
I think
to
all of it.
smooth that over? Yeah, that's what I'm
But,
saying.
So
and
here's
that
what I'm
video,
saying.
So, okay,
that
so
video
Demure.
So
is
well,
legendary.
so
for how
and again
horrible.
with the hint, like
You're not
to
gonna
go
let
on.
me finish?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry,
My
I'm
story,
sorry.
Tony?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
My bad. I did not mean to talk over you. It happens sometime we get excited
It
on the
does.
podcast.
It does. Well, but I know you two looking at me. That video was 2 girls in a cup. Oh. Yeah, I know. You can all go home and cry for me as well.
I think that was one, like, not
It was vile.
the actual video, but it was like a picture of part of it.
Yeah.
And I had avoided that because I heard enough to know that that's
See?
not something I wanted to see. But
This
yeah,
movie is a lot of those moments where you're just like, they're not gonna.
Jason thinks it's demure.
but to Jason's point, there's a couple things about hentai especially, and even like it started in live action. You can't show genitalia, especially with pubic hair.
Yeah.
It gets pixelated. Was a law. I think it still is. You can't show penetration, but hentai gets around it. If you're wondering why there's like tentacle, this and that, it was a way. There's a famous print of a woman and an octopus from it's block print like
Yep.
The Fisherman's Wife, exactly. I guess that was kind of, if we can show that, then we can show it's an animal, it's not technically a human, it's quote-unquote okay. It's not okay with me. If that's your thing, if you're not hurting yourself with others and you like this, like, man, who am I to judge?
Let your freak flag.
Yeah, like it's not my bag. Like that's not my thing. But that's why there's all this like kind of what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's way worse, like Overfiend, which I saw. Mainly, most people I think in college have seen Overfiend because they could not believe that there was a cartoon that did all the things Overfiend. And I still can't believe it myself. And I don't think I'm better for having seen that. I am.
I want to actually segue into a fuller analysis of this problem of sexual violence in this film, because here is what I think is the most problematic thing about Wicked City, is that if you look at a rape scene like you have in Deliverance, or a rape scene like you have in Last House on the Left, you're terrified for the victim. You don't want there to be penetration. You're worried. And with the girl in Wicked City, I think it's fair to say this is fantasy rape, and she is enjoying this. There's moaning, there's groaning, there's all this stuff.
If she's not enjoying it, the idea is that
it's definitely exciting for the viewer.
Yeah, that's
it's intended to be exciting for the person watching it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys think about that.
I'm gonna pass this one to Jamie because I think she's gonna have a lot to say about that.
Well, I thought it's a very, it's obviously uncomfortable and awkward because you're watching something that's incredibly gratuitous, in my opinion. And even though they're not actually showing genitalia, they're the silhouettes, the movements, and it doesn't cut away. It's more, these are sex scenes that are longer than normal movies. I had never seen pornography that goes this crazy. Like, this is not something I was prepared for in that state. And I have to say, like, the exploit that Mako, or Maki, is it Maki?
Maki, yeah.
Maki, goes through, and then it's just, oh well. There's a point where she's always villainized the entire movie by every single character except for Taki. He is the only one who's like, she's okay. I'm gonna save her from a gangbang. And even through that, their police chief, who, angry police chief, is like, hey, don't you save her from a gangbang. You got other stuff to do.
You're off the case.
Yeah.
Give me your badge.
It's things along those lines. You're like, what? And she does manage to save herself from the molestation of from a past lover, and she does which is another point. They cut away to a camera angle. You see his hands going down her panties, and which is weird because they're like see-through panties. You're like, why bother? And but anyways,
we'll just go with the 80s.
And she's moaning and gyrating a little bit, and they cut away, and there's a full screen of their two bodies on top of each other, him on top of her, and suddenly her hair starts moving like she's about to orgasm, except suddenly her hair flies up and latches around him and is strangling him, and he's all like, oh God. And that was the only part of the movie where I was like, yes!
Yeah.
Yes!
But,
Get him!
yeah. But as an adult, you're kind of like, I kind of, like, since this isn't shocking to me and it's more, like, in the same way, like, I'm thinking differently, and you're like, I wish you would have led with that.
Yeah.
Like, before, like, there's kind of this thing, and they kind of, sort of try
No, they're
trying to
having
make it
both
okay
ways,
because they were lovers one time.
Yeah,
but that's still not cool.
But
Like,
movies do that now. I mean, regular movies in Hollywood do that, where there's that old lover, they've come back, and there's some sort of angry passion, and suddenly they think it's a little kind of rapey, but she seems kind of okay with it afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's some uncomfortable small talk usually afterwards, but then, sure, I forgive you. Let's go. This movie is very much along the lines of that, and they do that. They just repeat that over and over and over. And I said that's the only scene where I felt like, okay, she's standing up for herself.
Yeah,
Every other
absolutely.
scene, but then she's punished for. That's why she gets gangbanged by demons, because she's getting punished for the murder of her former lover.
yeah.
Because she kills him.
Right.
Yeah, I wish she would have led with that though. Before, like, come a little closer. Ha ha!
Yeah.
We could have avoided a lot of
It
really
is very
things.
I mean,
like,
it's clearly intended to be titillating.
Oh, of
there is
course.
no intention whatsoever, I think, here to appeal to like a mass audience that doesn't have some kind of rape fantasy they're bringing into the movie.
To me, what's a shame though, like again rewatching it and being like, oh, I didn't remember all of this stuff, is that there's on the flip side, and I found this with another one by the guy who did Overfiend, like one of the videos that I got shipped to me I was talking about, like I forgot the name of it, I probably tried to block it from my mind. There's this, like, there's a really cool story in it, but you have to get by all this really stuff that I don't really want to watch ever. And that's a shame, because like in this, there's, he's about to go out with this girl. We'll start from the beginning. He's about to go with this girl, and, they're joking like, hey, I can't believe she's going out with you. He's like, yeah, finally, I'm going back to my place. Cool. And they're adults, and they're consenting adults, so that's cool. They go back. Well, they cut. Oh, man, wait, that's not the girl. They kind of hint you that.
Yeah, she's
the
passed
girl,
out. The real girl's passed out in the bathroom.
And then
the
ends up
only
this...
actual single woman.
Yeah.
Who's not a demon.
And then she turns into the spider. That transformation is amazing.
The Spider Woman.
So but not after they. Of course, since it's this movie, only after they make love.
Yes.
Which is its own thing.
Well, actually, no, it starts happening while.
Yeah, that's the thing. All of this,
While they're
all of
getting
the
it.
violence is, except for the time where it's like that weird tentacle storm thing that's happening. All of the violence suddenly usually starts like during the sexual encounter. It's not a beforehand, it's not really so much an afterhand, it's very much a part of it. It's intertwined, and I think it kind of, to me, I wonder if it speaks volumes about how repressed a lot of the societal views are. Even though here's this, it's right out in front of you, all these things, but we can't actually we can show a woman being incredibly violated in the most horrific of ways, but we won't be able to show anatomy.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You know, that it's kind of, it says a lot. It's like our culture with, you know, we can show you heads blowing up and the most gratuitous violence that you could encounter, but you won't get that R rating until you show a boob.
Right.
You know, and it's odd.
Well, there is a lot of, I mean, it is a lot of hentai and a lot of stuff like that is a very, like, is definitely a kind of a pressure valve kind of thing. And it is, like, it's not everywhere. I haven't been to Japan. Like, there was only one time where I was in a store where I was like, oh, cool, an anime store. And then I looked around and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is not the,
It's
not really the anime store I
This is not
thought I was
Studio
in. Oh, that's all the, yeah. Let's go next door.
I actually only learned about what hentai was a few anime cons ago, because there was a man walking around with a squid, asking, not a real squid, but asking girls to like take pictures, and he's like, "You look like Betty Page. It's like Betty Boop with the squid. This is gonna be great." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I didn't know why. And I see Drew from across the room. No.
That guy's pretty notorious, actually, though, too. And
Yeah.
oh, well, even better. So somebody after an anime convention, somebody decided to make this soda called Tentacle Grape, which is kind of funny.
Oh my
but
God.
you know, with a schoolgirl on the front of the label, and there's nothing going on exactly, but you know, of course,
It's implied.
so somebody puts this in the fridge at this job I was working at, and somebody goes, "Oh man, did you put that in there?" I'm like, "Why is it me?" Like, "Oh, you go to anime, you like that stuff." I'm like, "Not that," and I'm not. This really like this speaks more about you because of what you think I would do at work. Certainly, I would, even if that was a thing I liked. I'm not gonna put tentacle grape in the work refrigerator.
Yeah.
But if you can cut out all like the rapey parts of this, the sexual surrealism is like something that like Salvador Dali would have a boner over.
So-
right? It's
The transformation, like when the woman turns into like the Spider Woman.
I
that's
love the Spider
awesome.
Woman character. I love her design. She is so cool how she's upside down and she just kind of skitters around, you know, and then when he looks down, when she gets away, when the woman that he sleeps with turns into a Spider Woman and crawls down the wall, and then he looks down and she's like skittering across the highway, amazing. I was just like, this
and
is
the dialogue here, like in those little times, this is where I feel like it reminds me of almost Dragnet. Does anybody remember Dragnet?
Yeah, Dragnet the movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's like the old school film noir, you know, the detectives and whatnot. But his little comebacks and the little things he says.
So you watched it. You watched this dub then.
Yeah, we watched it dubbed.
Yeah, the dub's a little bit. The dub was in an age where let's kind of put a few things in there. Haha.
Yeah, it was very.
So I watched the sub because that's the kind of
'Cause you're cool
stupid.
like that.
I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
Tony's more punk rock and cool than us.
Maybe ours was more demure. And that's why
Maybe the dub. Oh, that's
I watched the same version you did. It was not demure.
That's the difference.
You keep saying this word. I don't think you know what it means.
The dub was the dub-mure version, and that's what you saw. Now it all makes sense. All of it's, yeah, I get it.
It was not.
So other creatures that we should mention. There's the Spider Woman.
Hypnovagina.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Hypnovulva.
Who
would be
also
more
can absorb
accurate.
men. Who works at a soap land. By the way, a soap land is a
Those
thing.
are two different
people.
creatures.
Different
So
people.
describe the soap lady, or Drew, you can. It doesn't matter.
Silly putty prostitute.
Yes.
Yeah,
So Giuseppe, the dirty old Yoda.
pervy, super pervy. In the long history of pervy old men in
Well,
anime.
he's an interesting character, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about him in a second. But he keeps trying to escape from the two blackguard agents because he wants to go to a cabaret or a strip club or a bathhouse or most importantly a whorehouse because he wants to get his rocks off. And he's sexually aggressive to both the male and female agent the whole time. Like, you know, he's super pervy in every way possible. And finally, he does manage to give them the slip. And you have this little scene where he's...
Goes out the bathroom window. You guys are the best.
He's a tiny wizened little dude.
He's with this woman that basically looks like anime Pamela Anderson.
Yeah.
And he's filling her up, and he's licking her nipples, and it's very like softcore HBO at 12 o'clock at night.
Except he does talk about he's like, oh, did I taste something? And she's like, I'm not pregnant.
Oh.
Which that doesn't make sense anyways.
Even that's sucks on her breast, and he
It's
talks
totally
about he
gross.
swallowed something. And then he starts to sink face first into her... Hands first, sorry, you're right, hands first. Into her chest. And the rest, because he's tiny, you know, he's Yoda size, into her body, like she's made out of silly putty.
Yeah.
She's very
So,
it's like
I
a
mean,
moon
we can
trap.
assume that this demon absorbs guys. Like,
Yes.
Like she's a succubus in the most literal sense.
It's a wonderful vision of a succubus. There's
Especially
so many ways
after
you
she
can
gets
define it.
up. And
and he's like, and they have to
still
rescue
there.
her. Yeah.
still like
He's like,
attached to her abdomen, all like
And we have cool things like they straight up rip off the Thing. There's like he shoots a creature, you know, as his first kind of blackguard thing where we see him doing his
with his big Hellboy gun.
Yeah, and he's got this awesome. I mean, if you want male fantasy, this guy has the biggest gun that shoots the biggest bullets. I mean, so
I
so
thought it was
powerful.
supposed to be a train coming.
So powerful that when he shoots it, it knocks him through walls. Like, it is the ultimate, like, if you wanted to say, this is male power, like, that gun is the gun. Like, you know, that's a lot of this movie. And that's, I mean, they know their audience. Like, they know exactly who they're
Apparently
selling.
it was me when I was 15.
There you go. And again, you probably would have been like, oh yeah, that gun's pretty awesome.
I am from
look
Texas.
out the
But he
big
does.
those
He
bullets
shoots,
are.
it slices through things. So if he shoots you in the neck, it'll blow your head off.
No, it's like a 50 caliber, like, it's like a, you know,
but
a tank gun,
the
but
thing
in
you
a
were
pistol
thinking
form.
of, he shoots
large
that guy
And
at the
this
airport.
is why this movie makes me think of Men in Black, because like
Oh, yeah.
they have the gun in Men in Black that is literally the parody of this, where you know Will Smith is shooting this gun and is literally knocking him off his feet because it is so powerful. And it's the same shtick here, only he shoots this guy's head off, and then the head becomes a creature with like Pac-Man.
Just like, well, it's a straight up lift on the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's no, and meanwhile he's being paralyzed by this other creature that has like tentacle / bone.
Its
that
ribs
comes out of
become grabby arms.
So there's all this cool stuff. I mean, again, like
and eyes or mouths, it's like
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And they,
so
you know,
cool.
when Maki gets captured eventually after this, and Taki decides he's going to go save her because he actually does care for her, even though, and she's got these awesome like red nails, like super 80s color that she can slice things.
Wolverine-esque.
So it's, I mean,
Wolverine Lee Presson.
Yes,
it's so cool. What?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm
Lady
sure.
Deathstrike.
I'm guessing
If Sheena
somebody may have seen
Easton
this movie.
were Lady Deathstrike, you would have this character.
But it's also they have this like it's so interesting. I don't know if you can separate the problematic things from this because it isn't. But
Short answer.
I would really like. Oh, by the way, there's also a live action. I can't remember if it's Hong Kong. There's a live action Wicked City as well, which I have seen sometime. Yeah.
So do they do the Spider Woman?
It's all kinds of crazy, man.
All right.
Like I don't know. I haven't
Can
seen
I force
it.
us all to watch that too?
I haven't seen that in a while, so I'm not gonna recommend it. But I remember it being pretty crazy as well. But you know, there's this like Mulder Scully kind of thing, and like that's cool, and the blackguards are cool. The demon hellscape when they go there, also like really interesting. He's being heroic. And then that, like, when he goes to save her, though, there's weird rape stuff, of course.
Yeah, she's being Eiffel Towered.
Good grief. But he saves her, and that's cool. And then I guess and he comes back, and of course his boss is mad. Like, how could you save a demon? Like, why didn't you just leave her there? Demons do demon things. It's important that you protect. We're pervial.
This
guys.
is just trope. At this point, the fact that he gets kicked off the case is strictly just because they're following.
There's a ton of cop movie.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean it is that. It's hard. I mean they're making a cop movie.
Yeah.
Somebody probably saw Lethal Weapon at this point. Like,
I mean,
Blade Runner 2 is is very big.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and of course, since this is the '80s, it's also very Blade Runner. Like, there's all kinds of bits. And I guess we can cut to. They go to a church.
We should discuss what the ending is, and then I want to get questions. So I
want to talk
I
about.
liked Hypno-Vagina.
Oh yeah, there was also a woman with
Vulva, excuse me, I should get the
amazing
anatomy
creature,
correct.
yeah.
So there was a woman with a vagina in her chest that also hypnotizes people.
It's like labia, like labia.
Again, I'm not going to judge.
It reminded me of Wayne's World,
I do find this oddly fascinating.
But the Wayne's World part where Wayne and Garth are like fantasy, like doodle-loop, doodle-loop, doodle-loop. That is what her suddenly, it's like her eyes are mystifying and she's so intoxicating that Taki is going to suddenly just be like, I gotta have this lady. And he starts getting all like, yeah, okay, all right. And then she's like, come here, Taki. And suddenly, hypno-vulva.
So there's also a whole series called
he doesn't fall for it, by the way.
Common Mask, where she wears a mask. The rest of her is nude. And when her legs spread apart because she's a superhero, everybody's either, I think she may even kill them when they see this. So this is a tradition. Popular show, popular manga, and was also live action as well. Sadly, I got sent that too. Which it's so gonzo and weird. Like, all of this is weird. And then the Spider Lady comes back, we find out, oh wow, she actually can make webs.
Yes.
Then we realize that it's because it's Wicked City. The webs come from her.
Yeah. Every movement she makes is funny. That's what.
But that part I thought was actually, I was like, well, that's logical.
Well, by then you're all in.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not
nothing
all in,
surprising at this moment.
She's upside down when she's talking to somebody, so she just sort of lowers herself from the ceiling by this sort of.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, she's like, low, yeah.
And then when she's done talking, she just kind of recedes into the ceiling again.
I really
There's
do.
also the
I just love how she dies.
There's also the boob worm
It's like,
that silly putty horror put into Giuseppe, and eventually he vomits up the Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah. It's just a worm creature that he sucked up. So here's what's weird. Let's use that to segue into the end of the film, which is that we discover, spoiler, that in fact, Giuseppe Myert, was really on a special mission to force our heroes into a love affair together because they will be key.
I have to say something here.
Yeah, go crazy.
So he says, hey guys, I'm sorry I was acting so pervy to y'all, but it was really just to get you sexually piqued so you would get it on and create a half demon, half human baby. It was all really an act.
She's trying to turn you both on.
Yeah,
Equal opportunity.
but it was just stick. You dig,
Because who's not turned on by a pervy Yoda?
Yeah.
But why did he go to the whorehouse if it was an act? I just don't.
Because that's how people do.
Was it method?
Okay, so yes. So it's like he's on assignment. It's like anybody who's ever tried to use their per diem or their business card, man, they just wanted to go to the strip club. They did. I had the card and I was on a business trip. Who am I to tell them no? No, that's his whole thing. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'm just, dude, I'm totally just helping him out.
Just separate.
Meanwhile, they get to go. Like, yeah, that's his whole shtick. Of course, he wants to go there. He's just, but he's got the company card, and he's trying to figure out a way to use that. That's basically it.
I want to mention one more thing before we get to the end, and that is I really love the choreography of the fight scenes in here. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, there's this thing that happens all the time where even though there's no reason that this human fighter Taki should have wire fu, he does. And there's moments where if he wants to take some steps back, he'll like spring, and then the camera will go woof as he like flows backwards and then like drops
Very
down.
Matrixy.
So as an animator,
Yeah.
a former animator, now I work with animation teams.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I was both surprised at all the stuff we talked about, but there is some really, and it's a shame it's in this movie.
Yeah.
Shame, I don't know if that's the right word. But anyway, like a lot of OVA stuff is kind of done, even though it's OVA, it has a little bit, but it's bigger budget, but it's still kind of on the cheap. And there's a lot of on the cheap kind of things where they whereas like Snow White's animated one frame, like each, a lot of anime will be on 2s or 3s, so they'll have like one pose and that'll be for 3 frames or 2 frames, and then the next pose.
Yeah.
Whereas a Disney film will often be on 1s, like all the way through. You'll get all the frames. There's some beautiful action I'd forgotten about. His movements and the way he's doing things, like what you're talking about, it's because they're animating not on the cheap on those. Yeah. So whenever the director decided, like, we're gonna do these certain sequences, he went all out. Because it's more expensive, and that's why. It's more expensive. You're paying somebody to do X frames per day, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna cost more if everything's on the 1s, because you're gonna get less animation that day.
Yeah.
Because you're animating less, because you're drawing twice as many, 3 times as many frames. Where they animate and go all out, I was blown away. There are some amazing action sequences, which is why this has been ripped off so much. Because, I guarantee you, modern action directors who if they claim at all to be influenced by anime, have seen this movie. Like, there's no doubt about it. But there are some beautiful action sequences in this that had no right, like everything else is like a little bit like a kind of weird stuff. Like, I was surprised that they would spend the care and really go out. Like that's actually where it shines. In all the problematic areas that it has, when they decide to make a really beautifully choreographed action sequence, they did not skimp. It is fantastic. Maybe not like Cowboy Bebop level. Or, there's a bunch of like fighting anime where it's a lot more fluid or like has a bunch of more stuff, but there's some bits where I actually rewound it because I was surprised because I'd forgotten about the other stuff, and I was like, man, I gotta frame through that because, like I said, being an animator, like I'm watching for all that, and it is phenomenal. I wish there was like a master cut of just all the action sequences.
The boss battle villain is really cool because he's like this rock demon with like bone spikes that come out of his elbow.
Yeah,
like that guy's awesome.
He has this sort of Shrike method of using it. Yeah,
There's all this cool stuff trapped in a really problematic, weird movie.
Twisted.
I forgot. Twisted. Movie, yeah.
Twisted.
So we should get. I want to open it up to.
But there's also so basically, again, spoilers. There's a, in a very 80s Skinamax way, they eventually do get together.
Yeah.
But he's not leaving his blackguard job, so, probably because there's 6 other novels.
Right.
Or 5. I guess this one's 1. And there's, but So, which leaves us with like maybe we'll get more Wicked City, but I don't know if we ever need more. Although there's the live action one, which I kind of am curious to watch it again.
It's a series of books, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think they were ever translated though. Yeah. But so let's leave it open to questions, which we don't normally get to on the podcast when we just record ourselves.
So you can ask about the movie, but also if you just want to ask about really, frankly, anything that you think we would be good to force to answer would be fine.
So you can be famous on the internet. Please state your name before you state your question.
My name's Dakota. My question is, can we talk about the scene where for some reason he somehow gains superhuman strength for an instant and never explains why he somehow he's firing at a demon in the air, and then somehow the demon comes right down, just a henchman, but somehow he gets angry enough to punch his head.
Yeah, Taki gets like a fist of the North Star.
My take was always that, like, my guess, again, this could be just, fan wankery, is that he's actually, like, as a blackguard, he's actually, like, trained to really do this stuff. He relies on his gun until he can't rely on his gun, and as a blackguard, he has some kind of, like, if not Spider-Man, kind of, like Batman, there's not a really good reason why Batman just isn't, like, full of just bullet wounds and, like, just cannot function anymore because he's been beat up enough. I get the impression that Taki kind of had that. That was my take on it.
I thought that, maybe I'm misremembering. I'm trying to remember exactly where it happens in the movie, but I thought it was after after Taki and Monkey have their. No, it's not after she gets knocked up.
Yes.
Rescuing her.
Again,
Okay.
well,
Which
that's
reminds me,
Ray
she gets,
level
we
too,
can
yeah.
even talk about how she suddenly gets all those crazy powers because she's got like her half-human demon baby. Like she's all badass mother.
Moms unite, I
Yeah.
guess.
She's one bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
Nice. And this is why you guys.
Thank you for the project.
These are the jokes, folks. Anybody else have a question or conversation piece?
Sure.
What's your name so you can be famous on the internet?
I'm Jacob, and
Hey.
I might understand it better if I saw the movie, but I don't really get the conflict of it, because it seems like the guards are in way more danger than the guy they're trying to protect here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think that's part of it is if this treaty, you get the impression that if this treaty goes south, that it will be really, really bad.
It'll be like
for
hell on earth.
Yeah, for our side will catch the worst part of this, and I think that's the big deal. And yeah, it's way more dangerous to be a blackguard, I think, than possibly their demon counterparts. Although, I guess according to this movie, if you are the demon blackguard, like, rape's kind of just part of, like, well, it's happening again today. Oh, I hate it when that happens. You're
Just
right.
Another day
Want to go for
on
a
the
drink?
job. I don't need therapy at all.
Yeah.
But I think there's
I'm
something...
just going to steal the stress. Because that's what you do.
I interrupted you. I apologize. But I think there is actually kind of an answer that feeds into your question, which is the person that they are intended to protect probably is more. You get the impression he's 200 years old. He has powers of his own. So to an extent, giving him bodyguards that are willing to risk their lives has more to do with a sign of respect and the fact that this important treaty is going to be signed. Each of us is going to risk the lives of somebody that's valuable to us to protect this noble person, even though he's this crabby little.
Well, also, by the time you really kind of meet him, you realize it's less until the twist.
Yeah.
Like, it's less of them actually, like, guarding him, like they're going to protect him from. They're really kind of protecting from himself,
right.
And to just kind of get him there. Like, look, he's going to try to go to every whorehouse. Just please make sure he's there by like 5 a.m. And that's kind of really like where it starts. It's like
that's something you can identify with.
Yeah,
right?
like it's like the guy where you're like, hey, and I had a friend who for a while escorted celebrities, like when they came to Japan. And some celebrities, cool, and others were like, hey man, take me to here. Hey, I want to have this. And you're just like, his job was to
protect Nicolas Cage, because we all know that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. That it was more sports celebrities, but yeah, but you're really there. You're there to help them out, but they're like, man, we can't trust this person with themselves. Just make sure they make it there.
You're babysitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Did that answer your question? All right. Anybody else? Next victim.
We had competing theories on that, actually.
Sure.
Come on.
Come
We'll
on.
get to you. I promise. We'll get to you. Well, what's your name first?
Name is Rudy, and I just have some comments. First of all, thank you for recommending me a beautiful piece called Wicked City.
Oh, you're welcome. It was amazing, right?
After I leave, I'm gonna educate myself and see this
That's not a euphemism, right?
Yes.
We all educate ourselves,
Yeah, so that's
Kids are calling it these days.
I guess.
that's one of my comments. And another thing is like, I think we reached to a point where, we've seen it all. And, after this conversation, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones. And, yeah, so tame. So tame. And,
But a young man.
oftentimes I hear that. It's like, okay, how is this rape scene relevant to the story? Why can't they just fight?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, fight. Okay, they're conspiring against this guy, rape scene. It's like, all right, how is this relevant?
Yeah. I don't watch Game of Thrones, so I can't comment on it. But does anybody want to?
Well, okay. I mean,
Because
Game of Thrones has a hard
my
time
friend, who
passing
brought
the
up
Bechdel test a lot of the times as well.
a lot of people complain about that.
a lot of people complain about the sexual violence on Game of Thrones. The sexual violence on Game of Thrones is a lot more realistic. And although, in fairness to them versus this, they actually somewhat deal with the psychological damage that inflicts on the character, which has more sensitivity than this film ever shows, which is amazing to say, really. To your point, rape is not a subject that should ever be given into lightly, and I think my co-host would agree with this.
You think?
But I think for me, the biggest problem I have with that, this is used as a story device, is that it is never dealt with emotionally. It's just kind of like, here's the next scene, and nobody's talking about it. And that's kind of terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right?
Look, in this one, it's definitely titillating. I don't even. It's barely a story
meant to be
device.
anyway. I mean,
It adds nothing, really.
yeah.
Yeah, right. I've heard people defend Game of Thrones. I've heard feminist female writers defend Game of Thrones because they think everything is important to the plot. I've heard a lot of people say, no, I don't think so. I could do without it. It's not working for me. I don't know. It sounds.
What I think about Game of Thrones is that I think rape is actually a topic that needs to be able to be discussed. If we keep, obviously this movie's thrown it out there, it's very much in your face, but it's still like the actual repercussions from it are just swept under the rug. And I think the fact that it is bringing a topic to light, to, something very dark that we do as a society need to be able to discuss so that we can, get rid of it. That's obviously I don't think it's something that you'll ever be able to rid, but we don't have to tolerate it. We don't have to blame the victim. And this movie, if you turn it on itself, it's so much almost a satire. Like it's comical how much victim blaming there is in this movie, and we can, compare it to our current political climate, our current events, the things that we hear about, and it's just, I think that in a way it is kind of necessary. It is something with the character because you're developing a character, but that I'm kind of spinning my wheels here. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, it's
How's it going?
And I think that's again why, teenage us, when we watched this, didn't probably think of that. But then when you are older and you realize what an issue it is, and you realize, and you have friends affected by sexual violence, and you know people, and if you don't know people, or yourself, and then you watch this with different eyes, and you're like, oh man, this is part of why this is really problematic. That I would, in a lot of ways, prefer myself, again, whatever you're into, whatever, like I said, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others. But I would like the Mulder Scully action cool parts and the Spider-Woman without the other parts. Yeah. And that's like, and it becomes like, again, that's one of those things where you may not think about it until you're confronted with something like that.
You have to have
the wherewithal and the conscious decision to take a step back after viewing this movie and really kind of do, I mean, I know we're cracking jokes and whatnot, but kind of analyze it and see for yourself where you stand on these topics. And with that aspect of, especially rape and the victim blaming and all of these things, it does make a difference into how we as a society see each other, as we see ourselves. And I think you owe it to yourself, you owe it to others, and you owe it to the victims who have been raped and who will be raped and who will be sexually assaulted to at least understand to some extent that we cannot blame
Can I
a
ask a
victim.
naive question?
Yeah.
I mean, what if, okay, so I was watching a movie from the 50s. Everybody knows I love the long-running soap opera Peyton Place because I steal all my plot points from it. But I was watching the movie Peyton Place, which very much centers around this trial of this woman who kills her stepfather because after he rapes her. He rapes her, she gets her revenge and murders him when he comes home on Christmas. But for the actual sexual assault, it was done 1950s Hollywood style, which is to say, she's screaming, they pan away, they cut to the next scene, no moron in the theater doesn't get what happened in the plot. And this is 2017, and I'm actually still fine with that. I don't, the rest of the movie was about the trial of this woman who murdered him. I don't need to see the scene.
Yeah.
Is it, but, so my question is, am I naive? Am I just
I don't think so. I mean, a lot of my friends saw Irreversible.
Yeah.
And I choose never to see that movie. I don't want to see the things that are in that movie. I don't. Yeah. There's a graphic rape scene in it. I don't want to see that. I could see this movie without that. That would be fine. Wicked City is a movie. It's not touted. Wicked City knows exactly what it is and what it's trying to be, and it's meant. There's a very specific audience, especially in '87, that this goes for, right? Yeah. Like you rent Wicked City at the time, especially in Japan. Yeah. Like actually, you probably read the book, and so you kind of know where it's coming from.
I have a question for you because of this, because you said you saw this movie when you were 15.
15.
Now, I think that's illegal. And
probably.
And actually, I was going to say this. I don't know if this is something you want to talk about, but I feel like I know there was a certain incident that happened at your local video store provider. Right? Wasn't that the...
Yes, it was, but no, I would not have wanted to talk about that. But since I cannot...
But I think, honestly, this is the perfect time to discuss things along this line.
Okay, thank you for putting me on the spot.
Well, sorry, I think these are things that should be...
Okay.
We've got them.
All right, well, we're gonna...
And then we'll come right to you.
Okay, so the owner of our video store was eventually arrested because he was running a pornography ring, specifically with teenage girls, out of the back of his business. He was making them and selling them. And when he was caught... Underage girls. And when he was released on bail, he went in to the video store, shot himself in the head.
Oh my gosh.
And the very next day, I remember, because I had videos, I had the return, I went in there, the entire place smelled like rotten meat and carpet shampoo, and his poor Vietnamese wife, who was an immigrant and not like was having to deal with this and still open for business because she needed to make the money, was there behind the counter acting like everything was normal.
Wow.
Oof.
So...
I think that's
where were we going with this?
I'm saying the reason I
we
think
went
we do
dark
need to talk
real
about
fast.
that is because here this is a movie that is about this is sexual perversion, and the fact that it is something we're talking about rape, and it's something that we I feel I had nightmares after seeing this movie. I'm not like Spider-Woman.
I had a dream I was in the bath. It didn't go well. Yeah.
But I mean, Spider-Woman,
Well,
not to counter that, but like the Spider-Woman part you could have without the rest of
Oh
it.
yeah, I'm just saying that this movie creeped me out. But the rape aspects, I feel like these are the things we need to talk about because these are things that happen. Because these are things that we not only expose ourselves to, but we expose others to. And in some cases, people are exposing children to these things. And 15 years old, I'm sorry, that's a child. That I feel like makes me feel uncomfortable watching this movie, knowing, like, I didn't know until you said that during the podcast that you were 15.
Roughly,
Is
yeah.
a teenager? Well, roughly.
Right.
Either way. That's not a man. That's not a grown-up.
And I'm
that's
saying as an adult, I watch this movie differently, as we've
Right.
said over and over
But
again.
seeing that as a young, developing man, that had to, in some way, kind of shape some sort of opinion around rape for you. And seeing that, I'm asking.
I would never watch a movie like Irreversible.
I don't know what
It's a movie about rape or someone getting raped. This movie, you're talking about us cracking jokes. I think that is a defense mechanism because this movie is warped, but it's also absurd. If this was played more realistically, I wouldn't be able to watch it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like this is not.
And yet, Deliverance is a movie that needs to exist.
And Deliverance is also a disturbing movie in a very different way.
It is very hard to watch that scene. That doesn't have a Hollywood cutaway, and I'm contradicting myself because I just said, hey, let's have the Hollywood cutaway, but actually the scene in Deliverance it makes that movie. I mean, no, that's a fabulous movie the whole way through. But that is,
Yeah, but I mean, and not to defend what's here, but in general, again, I don't think like in Japan this isn't like a mainstream movie per se. Like this isn't a movie. When we say like, oh, this stuff exists in Japan, my friends who are Japanese, they weren't. A lot of the reason why this was an interesting anime footnote is this is a lot of the stuff that was coming across. I can't believe there's an animation that's this, right? And a lot of my friends were like, dude, when did you see that? Like, my parents are gonna let me watch that.
That's pretty
like it was,
obscure.
or we'll see things and it'll be like a late night thing. So, but a lot of this came over when, in that same way where they were marketing, whoa, here's all this stuff that wasn't really popular, and the reason it came over here was because they could sell it for cheap or get it distributed for cheap. You know, and part of the draw was, oh my gosh, this is crazy, and that's how I would see it, you know. But yeah,
You do. Okay, I like my spider sense was tingling.
Yikes.
Yes, please do come over here.
Yeah.
Come over here. The long way around.
in case people are
And-
wondering, the sound is this is now for the listener on the web. The sound is from a movie that's going on next door. There's a rave.
There's a rave going on. For those of you who can't listen,
What's your name?
we have a lot of
Amber.
glow sticks.
Amber, what is your question or comment?
Ooh, boy, is this podcast gonna go 21 plus.
I think I just did that talking about the guy shooting himself.
this got a little bit more real than our usual podcast. So,
I was trying to make
yeah.
Hey, I didn't see you went to the meet.
I was trying to think of how I'm gonna ask this question, but
Yeah.
in the let's see here, when it comes to graphic nature, how can I start this question? Not so long ago, I played a game where, on the surface level, it starts out cutesy, but then it goes into dark themes. And as I was playing it, the dialogue seemed very almost rapey. They didn't show any context of it, but the dialogue was reading, and I'm like, gosh, I feel uncomfortable. And in relation to that question or the topics that y'all were bringing up, do you think showing is more effective or the imagination? Because I know when most people look back on certain movies, and especially kids' movies, as an adult, and you start knowing the kind of the symbolism or subtext on certain things, you're like, oh, I don't think I can take this. Especially when they're not graphically showing it, but the dialogue or the type of delivery that isn't like so explicit.
It's implied though.
Because, oh shit, I just remembered. Like, for example, I forgot which Star Wars movie it was, but basically one of the characters go through like a warp, and basically like half of that, one of the lines was, whatever happened, half of that person came
What
out
we got
the same
back
way.
didn't live long.
Yeah.
Star Trek: The
And the
Motion
imagination in my head was like, oh gosh, but then someone brought up, nah, if they showed it would have not been that effective because of the time. And I'm just thinking, do you think the imagination's more graphic, like the viewers, or...
I'm
the
fine
film
with
shows?
cutting it. There's nobody who doesn't know what you're talking about when you listen to the dialogue.
And I also I feel like I definitely don't need to see a lot of things. I tend to watch a lot less graphic things lately because the news can be so depressing. But in a lot of ways, the imagination and horror, I think, especially works. We do a horror movie podcast, what we're doing now. There are many ways where if you had shown something, it would have been so much it wouldn't have been effective. The cutaway or the implied nature of things is more
absolutely
effective if you are looking for a horror response. But again, I don't know if I need either in this particular subject. But I think in horror in general, I think it is more effective in the imagination if the alternative is something not as well done or is going to be cheesier. Because what you come up in your head is always stronger, I think, than what we can show in almost every case.
I think
personal.
it's also what the director's trying to achieve, the reaction from the viewer. If someone is saying, or if your director is just like, I want to set this tone, and like your Peyton Place, it's all about the drama centered around, the courtroom drama, and we just need that as part of our plot, as part of the storyline. I don't think there's a need to show that. If it's along the lines of, well, I need to traumatize my viewer, basically, into, submission. I mean, they need to know how terrible rape is. Then, obviously they're gonna try to push that through, but I mean, do I think that that's the right thing to do? Not necessarily, but again, it's what you're trying to achieve. I think of the song "Me and a Gun" by Tori Amos. It's a song about her being raped, and me and a gun and a man on my back, and all of the thoughts that are going through her mind. And you think about something like that where she's having a very horrible experience, but is managing to have it guided around, the descriptions of what's going through her head as opposed to, what's happening to her body. I think that almost gives more gravity to the content.
So what is your name and what is your question?
It's Victoria, and it's kind of more of a comment to the last question, is the imagination can be a lot more graphic, like the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
They actually, a lot of the real graphic stuff was never actually shown. They
Absolutely.
left it to you to come up, and you could come up with a lot worse.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of the legends, where people, I saw this, a lot of people thought they saw more in that movie than they actually did. There's tons of I saw this thing, and you watch the actual movie and that was never there. But people, because your imagination is so strong, you'll have people who report I saw this thing. Yeah. It's not in there.
You had people running out of that movie vomiting,
We did an episode on that, by the way.
And people did run out of that movie and throw up, and yet really the most graphic thing that happens in that movie is when they're hitting somebody on the head with a hammer, which is horrible.
Well, they put people on meat hooks.
Yeah.
And they're getting
Yeah, but again, it's pretty demure.
I think
There's again, I don't think you know what this word means. I hate to keep harping on Princess Bride quotes, but I really look it up.
Yes.
Demure. You're using it wrong. What is your name and what is your quest?
My name is Shay, and yeah, it's kind of an add-on to the other thing, like imagination versus show, but first part of it, do any of you guys know about a show called Revolutionary Girl Utena?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, okay, so he knows about the show. It has deconstruction of fairy tale archetypes, specifically prince, princess, and the witch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it also has other things such as themes on abusive and dysfunctional relationships of all kinds. And during the Apocalypse arc, there is sometimes, one bit of incest and another bit on statutory, but they do not really show full frontal what's going on. Like either it shows a rough movement, like one character getting grabbed by the wrist and then the windows shut, closed. And then another one, one is you see, that one of the characters is clearly dissociating. Like, you only see her from the shoulders up, and she's just talking about what to make for lunch tomorrow. She keeps on talking and talking and talking, and then flashes to other imagery like, I think at one point you have a view that you get driving at night on the road, but sometimes flashes of stop, 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 that kind of stuff. But yeah, you don't see anything goes on, but you kind of get some symbolic images of, your head fills in the gap, but also what's going on through their head.
Well, and was that effective for you? Did you find that to be effective, that storytelling?
Well, yeah, I mean, one bit, to tell you the truth, when it's full frontal, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sorry, I cannot get into Game of Thrones. My dad can still watch it, but unfortunately, I've had the misfortune of walking in just in time to see somebody taking it up the bum. Man or woman, I think. The whole, sometimes I think your brain can actually cook up even worse images.
Sure,
absolutely. It doesn't even have to be sexual, sometimes just, violent implications. Another example is, from Batman the Animated Series, the death scene of the Flying Graysons. You just see the rope snap and, then just dangles there, no sound or, you see everybody's freaked out expressions. But it kind of depends. Sometimes you get a combo of the two with symbolic
Well, I think,
things, sometimes I think your brain can cook up even worse images.
I agree, and I think that the scene you're talking about with this disassociation and with the stop and everything is in fact probably more, because that's along the lines of coping mechanisms, is probably more effective and more realistic with what probably would actually go on in that. If you just saw this really graphic thing, you'd be like, oh, that was really graphic, and either turn it off or whatever. But the fact that you go through that with the character and it has that impact, way more impactful, for better or worse.
It's also more artistic. I mean, anybody could just blatantly show something like that. I mean, there's no artistic value in rape, but if you're showing, like, I love that imagery that you were talking about, like, here's this woman kind of rambling on about lunch the next day, but the car driving around down the road and having like the stop, like that's so evocative, and you can picture this going on in your mind, and that is it is more powerful in a way, because you're able to take someone's own intuition and kind of force on your message through their own deciphering. And I think that's, definitely gives more artistic merit to
By the way, I'm going to have an aside here. It's got a lot more real than I think that
Sorry,
anybody
that's my
who
fault.
created
Is everybody
Wicked,
okay? Is
anybody
everybody
who
okay?
created Wicked
Is everybody
City
okay?
You may
has
need a
probably
therapist.
not psychoanalyzed. Like the creators of Wicked City did not psychoanalyze Wicked City.
It would have probably
And so-
been a better movie.
And
if
so,
it had been
yes, but I do think I'm going to state for the record now that when we do post this, and thank you for being such an awesome audience, that probably some disclaimers. This is the one. We haven't done this yet, but the more we talk, like I really think this is probably the one. Which again, is weird because Wicked City was like, hey, let's do Wicked City, but it turned out.
I'm sorry. Okay, is that what you want?
It's not on Drew. This is,
Hello again.
Hi, Jacob again. Yeah, I was going to say sorry for the tone change here, not to hijack the conversation. But I saw like ages and ages ago. I saw on I'm pretty sure it was a 4chan thread. This GIF of like the guy's hands sinking into the woman's breast, like pudding,
Yeah.
And I never knew what it was from. And so you have confirmed for me. I don't have to go watch it now. You like revealed the origin of this thing that's always haunted me.
Like,
Knowing
well,
is
I'm
half
sorry. A, I'm
the
sorry you
battle.
were on it. B, hope like, please, internet, whoever. If you watch American Gods, maybe the gods of the internet. I do really wish that somebody had like a master cut of all the awesome action scenes from this, which are really super cool.
I'm gonna make that just for you.
I think that
that would
Just
be
for
great,
you, buddy.
That would be fantastic.
There is the edited version that's censored. That's the one I saw, and I don't remember being anything spectacular, but I don't remember being, traumatized.
So, and you're saying that version that you saw is not the one you watched last night?
No.
There is no demure version, Jason. Get over it.
No, what he's saying is he's hoping for the demure version, which exists, and now he
I'm
can.
just saying that I was thinking that
It was either probably on Showtime or the movie
Yeah,
channel.
I'm
There,
sure
I mean,
it
there
was
was a
like
late
Cinemax.
night block that showed Demon City Shinjuku, Fist of the North Star.
Wicked
it
City,
showed all the
Demure
kind
edition.
of urban vision slash.
we
Yeah,
used to have a
we
thing
had 10
called
minutes.
cable cut. Does anybody know what that means? Cable cut. You used to be able to get adult material, and sometimes you would accidentally get the cable cut, which is to say nothing would happen.
So
everything would
I'm gonna now call all cable cuts the dub Muir version. That's my new term. TM.
Yeah, they were.
So please, for the love of God, tell me that you're gonna lighten the mood here.
A little bit.
Little bit. Let's go.
Thank you, sir.
As much as you can with Wicked City. Yes. Okay, this is Dakota again. My question is, why did they have to go through the entire? What was the entire point of this movie? Because I mean, really.
If you discover that, you tell us.
Let me elaborate on this point. You said like it's kind of like an act where they you want to get them both sexually peaked to make the child to make sure.
Sure.
Why didn't they just go with how Japanese culture used to do it, just do an arranged marriage between the two of them?
Because so they go through that it has to be love. Like they have to fall in love. It's still weird.
And they have to be super cool.
They have to
Blues
be
Brothers
in love.
cops.
But also you wouldn't get a buddy cop, weird, strange buddy cop, Mulder Scully thing if you didn't go through all. But yeah, I mean the whole thing is he's like, hey, it has to be true love. It's a weird fantasy.
So what you're saying, friend, is this movie doesn't make a lot of sense.
No. It doesn't make sense to begin with, but there's some, like you said,
It's a
very
disappointing
problematic.
payoff. It is a disappointing payoff.
And also, here's the thing: they've known each other for maybe 12 hours.
I love that. I thank you for bringing
Literally
this up.
12 hours.
This is the funniest part of the movie, in my opinion, is
Maybe
when
20 at most.
he saves her, and everyone's talking about like them falling in love, and she's like, "Yes, I do love you, Taki," and he's like,
So really though,
let's move in together.
here's my supposition that maybe I don't know if you found your true love, but if you haven't, maybe it's because you don't know a pervy old dude from another dimension who can hook you up and be a matchmaker with your true love. And maybe that is where true love comes from for all of
Here's
us.
the thing. I would rather
outside
him-
of Japan.
I'd rather him teach me the magic lightning powers than try to find true love, because at least after that, I can try to find true love in life.
Yeah.
Giuseppe's
But
like a
first, you have to find an old Yoda pervy guy. that you have to prevent from going to brothels. So once you found that, you too can find true love. Ta-da!
Okay, on that, Jamie, just so we can totally get this back to being serious. Not that you haven't done an excellent
It's
job.
like the 36
Please give us your pervy Yoda impression on that note.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a pervy Yoda impression.
Awesome.
Bend over and show me your dark side, you will.
All right, you have one more thing.
Did that happen? Did that happen when you were watching this movie?
Thank you.
Because I think if you had done that like throughout the movie, that would definitely like I'm hoping for the cut where you just we want the dub of you doing that for all the Giuseppe scenes.
Exactly. Every single one.
There we go.
But no, I love the fact that like he's totally like non-committal. He's risked his life to save her from the demon gangbang.
Yeah.
But
It's not gonna put his job.
yeah.
I mean, dude, it's tough being a
We're
black
kind of
guy.
moving a little fast here.
It's tough being a black guy. Like, give that up?
Anyway,
I don't know.
in one point, to go back to the Game of Thrones reference, at one point Tyrion is talking with his, at that point, prostitute Shay, who in the later shows is actually his, lover, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, he tells the story of, how his first wife ended up with the city guard and his father, this whole spiel. If you're Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. I won't go into too much graphic detail. Anyway, Shay makes a point, says, a woman who, you should have known she was a prostitute from the beginning, because there's no way a woman who's almost raped would offer you her bed. So it makes no sense why she would fall in love with him after she was raped so many times in Wicked City.
I haven't seen the show. I haven't seen Game of Thrones.
What I want to know is how I know it was his baby.
In Game of Thrones, is there like a pervy old Yoda guy? Because maybe they can all find true love.
Tyrion can be that at the beginning.
He's not old though.
But he's a dwarf.
He needs to be way older, I guess.
Let me just say, this is actually something that'll make America hate me. But I actually have not watched Game of Thrones because of the rape.
Oh, well,
that is actually.
That's a valid. I mean, to me, that's a valid point. Thanks for now making our podcast the podcast America hates. But thanks, Jason. We got 5 minutes. I think we have maybe one more question.
Hey, Drew.
Oh
yeah.
Well, we should get, another question, then we'll go to any final thoughts.
Yeah.
Come close. It's as far as it'll go. All right. It's not one of those tentacles. What's your name, sir?
Hey, my name's Andre. And one of the things that I really liked, that really interested me about Wicked City was the monster design and how it was heavily influenced by The Thing. The Thing came out in 1982, and Wicked City was 87.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just Wicked City though at that time. It was other films too, like Lily Cat.
Absolutely.
I can't think of the other ones too, but there was a lot of the shape-shifting monster stuff going on at that time, and you also kind of saw it later on. There's a new not new anime, but one of the newer ones, Parasite.
And the manga is so good for that too.
And Shin Godzilla to a point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of wondering, during that time, we saw a lot of the shape-shifting demon monster stuff, again from The Thing. What were some of the reasons behind that? Why were they so fascinated by that type of monster?
I think a lot of it goes, but it could be anybody. We don't a fear of the unknown. You don't know what's inside, whatever. And we again, Cronenberg is a master of that kind of stuff. I think it's the way off-putting, how. Cancer and stuff like that, how our bodies can rebel. A normal thing can turn abnormal so easily, and that's very disconcerting.
I think we were just saying about the actual, your bodies, but I mean, think about going to bed with someone that first time. That's a very it's a point where you're opening yourself up in so many different ways, and you're so just not receptive, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vulnerable?
Vulnerable, right. And, I think it says a lot that, all the problems in this movie, all the, main conflicts happen during sex. It's all during, and, a lot of those shape-shifting monsters come out when they're getting busy. That seems to be what triggers it, which is funny because sex is such a big trigger in so many different ways, and this movie definitely has so many triggers.
I guess we got.
Yeah, we should do our
quick.
final thoughts. So it's been really great getting your questions. We're going to just give some final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up, and then whatever is happening next, I think it's your event.
Later, like 11.
All right, so, which is in 7 minutes. So, okay, we've discussed a lot. Jamie Barr, final thoughts, Wicked City. Should somebody run out and see this?
Well, if you have morbid curiosity after listening to this podcast, then go and check it out. If you are offended easily, or even not that easily, just prepare yourself. And, it's an opportunity for you to see the movie for what it is, what you think it should be, and why it is the way it is. And,
Wonderful. Drew, what are your thoughts?
You skipped over Tony.
I'm just going down a list. I was going to go back to Tony.
I kind of collect my thoughts. Go with Tony.
Okay, Tony.
No pressure.
I say you should watch Wicked City again if I can get that master cut of awesome action sequences. Since hentai is not something I really search out because I'm older and that's not whoa, look, I've kind of seen that for better or worse. I guess I have experienced enough of those soap bubble moments that it's no longer man, I can't believe I'm seeing this, and more yeah, sometimes I want to see something way happier and not that. Yeah. I still really I kind of want to read the novels because I'd kind of like to see more of that interaction that they have, and I think the Blackguard part is really interesting, and I think there's a lot of just awesome monster designs. There's cool stuff, but a lot of things in this genre, unfortunately, it's hard to it's too enmeshed within that to really kind of have a good separation. Again, if you enjoy that, cool. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it, but it was a vastly different experience seeing this in college than I think this time, especially knowing that Jamie was oh no. Why do we should have picked something lighter or something. Not necessarily lighter because it's got to be horror, but something I don't know, boogie pop or something.
I've never said gangbang so many times within a 2-hour span.
I do want to never.
Life.
I think I also have had. I don't want to say rape anymore.
No.
I think I don't normally.
So we're not going to
ever.
Avenging Angel with
no, we're not. We're not. No.
This is 45.
Nope. I think I've had. That's enough.
Okay.
I think for a really, really, really long time.
I'm down with that.
That's fair. That's fair. For my part, I regret nothing. I do think this movie is warped. I think I've called it warped more times than I can count over the last few days when I've talked to people that I knew were going to be watching this movie alongside us for the podcast. It's warped. Certainly watching it as an adult was a different experience than it was watching as a teenager. However, we did get a very interesting, if intense conversation about it. Like I said, I regret nothing as far as the choice of the movie, even though it is an incredibly problematic, twisted, weird, in the bad way and in the good way kind of movie. If you are not easily offended, sure, go ahead and watch it. But trigger warnings all around.
Yeah.
And it's not demure, goddammit.
I stand by my statement that this is not the sinful dwarf. This is not. I've seen a lot of things that I would not call demure,
So have we, and that's the problem.
Jason Henderson, did your mama not love you enough? Come on.
So, but I'm actually very glad we saw and discussed this film, and I think it does have some very creative visions. I think it has some very problematic sexual content. I tend to avoid movies with rape in them, and this was an exception. And you know,
I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad that you had us watch this. I made you watch Embrace of the Vampire.
Oh no.
Oh please, I would give a million rape, just a million, like, well, I was thinking Rape of the Vampire, which is actually a movie.
That's a movie.
Yeah.
Of course
I didn't know
it
you could
is.
have rape in a movie title.
How?
From France, I guess you can do that. Yeah. But anyway, like, Embrace of the Vampire,
Which is worse, that Wicked City or Embrace of the Vampire?
Oh, Embrace of the Vampire.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's
a worse movie.
Oh, I don't even know, man. At this point, I think I'm toast at this.
This is
point.
a much
Like,
more creative film.
it is a lot. There's a lot more cool. The parts that are cool in this movie are way cooler.
Yeah.
The parts that are problematic are way more problematic.
Embrace of the Vampire is a wonderfully cheesy, romantic, sexual in a Cinemaxy kind of way.
In a Skinemaxy kind of way.
It is. It's wonderful. I mean, I really loved it. It's terrible. That was the strangest sentence ever. But my point is, it's a problematic film, and I enjoyed discussing that one as well. Okay, do we want to do endorsements, or is that?
I think we run out of time.
Okay,
we will put the endorsements if we have any on the website.
If you listen next week,
and we'll
at the
endorse
end,
Animefest.
we'll also do endorsements of whatever we're watching or listening to.
Thank you, Animefest.
Thanks for having us.
Oh my
I
gosh,
know,
thank
and you know, thanks for sticking with us.
You are
and
brave.
You're brave, and you've been a great audience. Also, when I think this is probably one of the deeper. Like again, I think we analyze Wicked City way more than any person who was involved in creating Wicked City ever thought about Wicked City.
Yes,
for real.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys.